Okay, Derbyite. Since the last time we talked, a lot has happened on the comedy side. Some people have sent out some ambient tweets, which I didn't know was a thing. But we seem to have an idea of what's going to happen, but they always love to throw us a good surprise or two. Let's start with comedy actor. Is this still Donald Glover's no one can challenge him, or is he got a race on his hands? Zach.
Well, he's got a challenger, and it's a formidable one. That is Bill Hader for Barry. As was the case with Donald Glover last year, as was the case with Jeffrey Tambor 2 years ago, as is often the case. When there is a brand new kid on the block, as it were, with a hot new comedy show, this is a place where they get rewarded. And Bill Hader, like those two other guys, has not won an Emmy yet. And I mean, this is like Atlanta. This is a show that he created, he writes it, he directs it, he stars in it. So this could be one of those places to reward him. Now, on the other hand, Atlanta is, I would say, at least one of the two top contenders for comedy series, along with Mrs. Maisel. So it stands to reason that he's got to still be the front runner. But perhaps we can see a scenario where they want to spread the wealth out in a couple of different places. Maybe give Donald Glover writing or directing this year, which he got last year as well for directing, and give Bill Hader actor, or maybe they keep Donald Glover an actor and give Bill Hader writing or directing. But it's really interesting. I mean, I think that for a while there, we were just assuming that this was his to lose again. But we got a race on our hands with Bill Hader.
Yeah, I'd say Donald Glover is winning again, and Bill Hader is firmly in the runner-up position. For nominations, I find this is a fun category because we have 4 guys back from last year, but then we also have another 3 guys who were nominated the last time that they were eligible, and that's Larry David, Jason Bateman, and Matt LeBlanc. So we have 7 people who are incumbent nominees. Plus, you also have, Thomas Middleditch, who was nominated a couple of years ago. There's, John Goodman and Eric McCormack, who maybe weren't nominated the last time that they're eligible, but they have been nominated before. So it'll be fun to see how it shakes out. I have Ted Danson sneaking in for The Good Place just because I want to throw a nomination to that show somewhere. And I think it does help that at this point he is seen as the better performance between him and Kristen Bell, since he did get the TCA nomination and he won the Critics' Choice Award. And then I guess my final thought on this category is I never want to fully discount somebody who is not in the prediction center, and that is The Rock. Because Ballers does get, big ratings for HBO, and if this guy wants to get votes from, the American public to become president someday, I feel like he should be able to convince a couple thousand Emmy voters.
I love that. That's God love you. I think it's between Hader and Glover. It doesn't help that so many other of the contenders have been nominated many times with no luck, and there doesn't seem to be any new momentum for any of them. So I think we got a 2-man race.
I am with you on that Ted Danson nomination, actually, Riley, because I have him in my predictions right now. What's interesting is, looking at this category, oftentimes the same people get nominated year after year. This year we have 2 people who, for one reason or another, are not eligible, Aziz Ansari and Jeffrey Tambor. So that leaves at least 2
Not that they
slots.
would get nominated this year anyway.
Right. Well, Aziz's show is not on the air, so...
Well, we all know what I'm talking about.
Yes, we do. So we're assuming that one of those will go to Bill Hader. But that's also assuming that, William H. Macy, who gets nominated every year for Shameless, comes back. That's assuming that Anthony Anderson, who's been nominated the last 3 years for Blackish, comes back. That's assuming Zach Galifianakis is not just a one and done for Baskets. Larry David is somebody who gets in every single year, except for I think 1 or 2 for Curb Your Enthusiasm. I have him getting back in. Eric McCormick got in and out for Will and Grace.
He got out the year after he won. So
He did, yeah. That was
Yeah,
I remember
he
that
did.
Emmy nomination
Famously.
morning.
Yeah, he's only 3 for 8.
Announcing the
Right.
nominations.
Yeah.
But he was the one who got a Golden Globe nomination for the show, even
The
over.
we're talking about the Hollywood Foreign Press. Come on.
Yes, I know what we're talking about, Amanda, but I'm just saying that, he got a Golden Globe nomination, even when no one else in the cast did.
So he's lost 29 at that award show for them.
Yeah, I 29. Now who can't count? But yeah, I mean, I think it's just looking at if we're assuming Bill Hader gets in and one of those open slots gets taken by a Ted Danson or a Larry David or an Eric McCormick or John Goodman, I guess, Matt LeBlanc, who gets left out?
I think Bill Hader knocks actually Matt LeBlanc out of contention because they both play actors. And I know Matt LeBlanc's playing like this heightened version of himself. But I think the fact that Barry's more in the race kind of like eliminates Matt LeBlanc. So if you're looking for someone to blame for why you're not nominated, it's Bill Hader's fault. I don't think you can get two in that very similar kind of, working actor wannabe, the troubles of being an actor. Now, the irony of this all is that on the comedy side, they've never really liked stand-up comedians. They don't win a lot. And it's been since Ray Romano won. He was probably the last stand-up comic.
I think you're right, yes.
Yeah.
Stand up.
Well, he's not really a stand-up, is he? I thought he was more of an improv.
He was a stand-up before he became an actor.
Okay. Yeah. But now we have Rachel Brosnahan playing a wannabe stand-up comedian who might just take comedy actress, and I think she would win in a panel vote also with that pilot.
It's interesting because you could, even though Julia Louis-Dreyfus is out of the running this year, you could still fill this category with all returning nominees from last year because they had 7 last year. Usually it's 6. But you have to assume that Rachel Brosnahan, after winning the Golden Globe, is going to be nominated here. But who does she take out? Is it Pamela Adlon? Is it Jane Fonda or Lily Tomlin? Is it Tracy Ellis Ross? Is it Allison Janney? Is it Ellie Kemper? And then you have to assume maybe there's some other new people who are coming in, like Alison Brie for Glow, or perhaps Kristen Bell for The Good Place, or Frankie Shaw for Smilf, or Deborah Messing could get in for Will and Grace. The Ambien tweeter might get some votes. You never know.
Now you're doing your predictions on Ambien.
Yes, yeah. But I'm just it's going to be interesting to see how many of these 6 women, since we know they love their repeats, who among them are going to drop out, just like in comedy actor.
You do kind of have to feel bad for some of those that have been in this category 3-4 times and just have lost to Julia year after year after year, and they finally get their chance, and here comes the newcomer.
Yep.
Just to ruin their lives.
But the newcomer has such an incredible character arc that none of these other roles really provide the actresses. So, the newcomer has definite chops to be the favorite right now in the category.
And I don't think in a season finale, unseen against Julia, she'd win. But I think last year, her episode versus Rachel Brosnahan's pilot would definitely have made this a squeaker.
Yeah, Julia would be sweating.
Well, whoever wins this year is going to have to, I guess, lose next year when Julia comes back from Veep, because that's going to be a narrative that's too great to ignore. So.
Yeah, I'd say Rachel Brosnahan has a perfect tape submission with the pilot. The other new person that I think would get in or is going to get in is Alison Brie for Glow, which is not a role that I expected to get a lot of attention because she's kind of the show's punching bag for some reason. But she was nominated by all the precursors, I guess except TCA, but she was nominated by Critics' Choice and the Golden Globes and the Satellite Awards. And I also have Pamela Adlon coming back because I think she's kind of weathered the, Louis C.K., everything that happened there on her own. I think the rest of her show is not going to be getting any nominations, but I feel like people still want to support her. I've got Allison Janney coming back for Mom just because she won the Oscar, and I thought that Viola Davis would fall out last year, and that didn't happen, and I blame that on the Oscar. After that, I'm very unsure. I think there are reasons why Tracee Ellis Ross could fall out because, like I said, I'm very apprehensive about Blackish, and she's somebody who won last year at the Golden Globes and was not nominated this year. And, the show won the TCA for Best Comedy, and now it's not even nominated. I'm very skeptical of that show in general. So in last place, I have Lily Tomlin, who I actually don't want to predict because I feel like Gold Derby is actually not great at calling when people who are perennially nominated fall out, but I just don't know who to replace her with.
Well, I have them. So I have Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda both back in because they got SAG nominations. The same thing with Alison Brie. I think Allison Janney, I think you're right. She's going to get in. But I think her and Laurie Metcalf should present together while we're throwing out ideas. But yeah, I mean, Tracee Ellis Ross hasn't been nominated for a SAG award. Anthony Anderson's been nominated twice now, 2 or 3 times. So I don't have Deborah Messing getting in. I don't have either of the leads from Will and Grace getting in.
We should also point out, I mean, we've seen the Emmys, they don't have a set number of 6 in these acting categories. We've seen some years where there were like 8 comedy supporting actress nominees. Last year, we mentioned there were 7 comedy actress nominees. So, I mean, they can just fill it up as much as they want. So maybe all of these people we're talking about dropping out aren't actually going to drop out. I'm so scared for my dear, darling Ellie Kemper and Kimmy Schmidt. I'm just
no SAG nomination. I can't put her in myself.
I've just got to keep hope alive.
Yeah. I don't have her. I wish I did. I love her so much. I have Jane Fonda dropping out and Deborah Messing not being nominated. But I think Alison Brie gets in and has an interesting shot. I have her in 4th right now. I think Tracee Ellis Ross will probably make it, but probably just by the skin of her teeth.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Oh, sorry, that you guys want to talk about? What about like Tiffany Haddish? Maybe she's having her moment.
Perhaps. I mean, excuse me. I would be more inclined to vote for her if she were in supporting actress. I mean, to predict her, because I think she might fare better there. But I mean, that could if I knew that they were for sure watching that show, then I would certainly.
It's TBS. Yeah. That's a hard one.
Yeah. I mean, there's people here who I think are like very deserving of nominations, like poor Rachel Bloom, who won that Golden Globe for the first year of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and just could never get nominated in this category. She has,
they hate the CW, so
I know. Justina Machado for One Day at a Time, which a lot of people love, but I think that we'll talk about this in a little bit, but I think that her co-star might be more likely to get in than she is. But yeah, I mean, we've got at least like and Issa Rae for Insecure. Who
I feel like Donald Glover's show kind of knocked her out of attention the first season. I feel like he could have had the moment and the buzz, but for some reason they just went with Donald Glover.
And they really should have premiered season 3 while Emmy voting was going on in order to remind people of the show. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't know if I don't guess it's ever going to happen for her for that.
Not now. No.
Yeah, the TCA forgot about Insecure, I think because it had been so long, but when the second season was on, it was a lot more acclaimed than the first, so I could see her getting in. And HBO, they do seem to have a lot of confidence in it since they, moved up its premiere. The first season was on in the fall, the next one was on in the summer because they put it after Ballers, which is their highest rated comedy. So not only is there more acclaim this year, but also a lot more people saw Insecure this season.
Well, we can hope for it.
Yeah.
Let's move on to supporting actor. Sean Hayes is leading the pack. He was the only SAG nominee this year from Will and Grace, but behind him is Titus Burgess, who just seems to perennially be the runner-up in this category. But there's a lot going on. So what I think we should do with this one is let's just go through and everyone give each other their 6. So let's start with Tom. What are your 6?
My 6 are Sean Hayes, Louis Anderson, Titus, Mark Maron for Glow, Brian Tyree Henry for Atlanta, and another skin of the teeth one just out of habit. They may go back to Alec Baldwin, but I hope they don't. I would wish they went with Tony Shalhoub from Mrs. Maisel, and I think they might because of the Tony performance and the Tony win. That got Emmy voters watched the Tonys.
And it was so cute. Rachel Brosnahan introduced her TV dad. It was really sweet.
Yeah. So I would go with Hayes, Anderson, Burgess, Maron, Henry, and Shalhoub.
Riley, what's your 6?
I have Mark Maron, Sean Hayes, Brian Tyree Henry, Louis Anderson, Titus Burgess, and Walton Goggins.
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
That's a good left field one, though.
For all the people to go with a left field one, I was not expecting it to be right.
Good for that.
Zach,
Okay, I'll defend it. I'll say that Vice Principals is another one that, like Insecure, it got kind of better ratings this year. At the very least, they put it after Curb Your Enthusiasm. I don't think ever expecting that it would outrate Curb Your Enthusiasm, actually grow from its lead-in, but it did. And I think that HBO is a network that the Emmy voters pay attention to, unlike a lot of others. Like they can kind of get, their DC Nash and Laurie Metcalf's nomination for Getting On, or for, another second season of a comedy for Enlightened, they can get Laura Dern and Molly Shannon in. So I think that they're paying attention to this network, and he's giving a performance that transcends the popularity of the show, since he won the Critics' Choice Award, and Critics' Choice didn't nominate anything else from the show. Walton Goggins has also been around for a long time. He got a TCA nomination for The Shield. He got Critics' Choice for Justified. He also got an Emmy nomination for Justified. He got more Critics' Choice nominations for Sons of Anarchy. This is the first time that he's actually won an award.
Mm-hmm. I would certainly vote for him if I had a slot.
I think he's hilarious in that show.
He's also a lead in a supporting category.
Yeah.
Zach, what are your 6?
Well, this is another one of those that I keep going back and forth on. I have Titus Burgess. I have Brian Tyree Henry, Sean Hayes, Louis Anderson. And as of right now, I have Tony Shalhoub and Henry Winkler. Mark Maron, I know that he's got the SAG nomination. It just feels like if there's going to be a surprise omission from the new contenders, it would be him. But I think if I could predict 7 people in this, I would have him in there. I don't have Alec Baldwin coming back. I feel like Saturday Night Live is not as buzzed about this season as it was last season, and certainly he did not appear in it as much as he did. I'm kind of surprised that he submitted in supporting. One person that could kind of come out of left field is Lakeith Stanfield for Atlanta. If they're just voting for that in all categories. Same thing with Kumail Nanjiani for Silicon Valley. He's a recent Oscar nominee, but I think it would help if his show, number one, had a history of getting nominated in this category, but also wasn't kind of on the downside. One name that none of us brought up, but he's in every year, Ty Burrell.
He wasn't in last year.
At the Emmys?
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
He's the one you always forget about.
I block out Ty Burrell.
Yeah, he's the one who took Brian Tyree Henry's spot. That's why, I mean, looking at all these, I've got a lot of, like Henry Winkler, Tony Shalhoub, there's Mark Maron also, all these like first season show guys. But as we saw last year with Brian Tyree Henry, sometimes your show can get in for comedy series and comedy actor, but the supporting players could miss the cut. But
Winkler's an excellent, Winkler's an excellent choice. I think there's a lot of warm feeling in the industry for Henry Winkler, and the fact that he does such a turnabout in terms of character, I think would be very impressive. And if Barry is continuing to grow, he's in a perfect supporting spot.
Yeah, and my 6 are Hayes, Burgess, Anderson, Shalhoub, Winkler, and Maron. I think that Brian Tyree Henry has 2 problems. One is, even when the show focuses on his character, it's still the Donald Glover show. He's still involved in it in a way that I don't think he can escape the shadows of it. And remember, with Girls, even in its 2nd season, everyone thought maybe Allison Williams will come in or Zosa Mamet, and they were never able to get out of her shadow, but Adam Driver was. So I think he might be kind of in a similar situation. And then I think, how do you not like Henry Winkler in that show? I mean, especially that audition episode of his. It's like a perfect episode submission for him.
Do you guys think that, I mean, we've been talking about how we think Will and Grace is probably very vulnerable. I mean, could that affect Sean Hayes? I mean, we, like you said, he's ranked in first place, but I think that has a lot to do with just the fact that he won this category before when Will and Grace was on. And
it was on 8 years and he won once. I mean,
exactly.
People have forgotten that he wasn't like, and I hate to use this name, but like Jeremy Piven or
John Larroquette is
another person like who won 3 years in a row.
Titus Burgess at the Gold Derby Awards.
That's right.
Like he never.
At least we know what we're talking about.
He won once, and then it just kind of fell off. Like it just the shtick of his character just didn't land more than once. So he might be more vulnerable, but he did get a SAG nomination, and he's the only one.
He's got a good episode. He and Mullally both have good episodes. McCormick and Messing don't really. So I think that if he submits the right one, he's probably in. I'm not sure he's in first, but I think he could be vulnerable, but I think he'll make it in.
Also, somebody who got nominated a bunch of times, Andre Braugher for Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I don't know if maybe all that talk about it being canceled and then coming back, maybe that'll remind people that the show was on the air in the first place.
Well, I thought he had a good season, and the box episode, the bottle episode with Sterling K. Brown, who's playing like an evil flatline version of Andre Braugher. Who kind of like, I mean, Sterling K. Brown helps him out because he gave him a shout out last year at the Emmys. So I could see maybe him sneaking back in here. He is still very respected, but I think if anyone's going to surprise us, it's Kumail Nanjiani. But I wish he had an episode like he did last season where he peed himself when he realized he'd committed a crime.
Right.
He killed that.
Yeah, that episode last season, if he had that this year, I would have him in my predictions because I think it would be enough to keep that momentum going from his Oscar nomination. He's hilarious on Twitter. He's like, why didn't I get an audition for Aladdin? I want to see that.
True.
I do think Andre Braugher could be the John Voight, Mandy Patinkin of the comedy supporting actor side, where they kind of come in and out and nobody knows why. I'll say why I don't have Tony Shalhoub. I think that the Emmys, they expect more from their veteran actors, kind of like we see at the Oscars, where Tom Hanks can't get nominated for anything, even though he turns in reliable, competent performances. I think they expect more from veteran actors who are in these supporting roles, unless they're a John Lithgow who actually is winning everything. I think we saw it with Mandy Patinkin in Homeland, Ed O'Neill in Modern Family, Christian Slater in Mr. Robot, Lawrence Fishburne in Blackish, Ed Harris Westworld, Sam Waterston in The Newsroom, Martin Sheen in Frankie, and Joseph Fiennes in The Handmaid's Tale. I don't think they like veteran supporting actors, being reliably competent.
But when you think of
Like-
him from Monk, and then you think of his Mrs. Maisel character, he gives us something different, which I think might help him. And that second episode, he's really good in that second episode where he's at the blackboard and doing his whole shtick about the vectors. And I'm like, man,
Yeah, sure. And I do think the Tony helps that he just won.
Yeah.
But also, like, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel won lead actress and comedy series at Critics' Choice at the Golden Globes, and he wasn't nominated for either. So I do think it's possible to, separate him from the rest of the show.
But the
Do you think
Globes
to
haven't
get it-
nominated anybody in a comedy series in like 2 or 3 years now, Riley, in that catch-all supporting race. So
Yeah.
they've really leaned heavily into drama and limited series. So I don't know how reliable that one is.
I think if he gets nominated, that'll be a good sign that Mrs. Maisel is the front runner. Because I could see him dropping out. But I mean, the thing is, previous Emmy winner. How many Emmys did he win for Monk?
He won 3.
He
He
won
could never
3 in a
win that
row?
4th.
Yeah,
I think so, yeah.
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 He wasn't
And
nominated
highly
for Nurse
regarded.
Jackie.
What?
I watched Nurse Jackie. Forgot he was in Nurse Jackie.
That final season was a mess. Like, come on. Edie Falco barely got in that final season. Let's calm down on that one.
All right.
Should we talk about supporting actress?
Yes. Let's talk supporting actress, because Kate McKinnon has won this the past 2 years, and she's won primarily on the Hillary character. I mean, she won for a dramatic playing of the piano last season. She's still kind of in first place, and followed as second is Megan Mullally. But I am concerned because she did not get a SAG nomination. And this is someone who won 2 or 3 times, I think twice. Are we overestimating her?
I think that, just because of how barren this category is from last year, I mean, we've got at least 4 open slots, basically. Of people who aren't going to come back, well, assuming that Judith Light doesn't come back for Transparent, but
If she comes back for Transparent, she's winning limited series
Yeah.
support. Like, that'll
but
confirm that.
so possibly up to 4 open slots, let's say. So I think Megan Mullally could get in just by name recognition alone. Although one of my big qualms with this revival of Will and Grace is I think she's been kind of wasted, except for Rosaria's quinceanera and a couple of isolated moments. They've just kind of, she hasn't been made great use of, and she's the funniest person on that show. But I think that, if there's a Mrs. Maisel sweep, I'd really be rooting for Alex Borstein to win. I think she's a real standout for that show. And I mean, she's a TV veteran from obviously Mad TV and Family Guy and
Getting On. She was
Getting
the
On,
only.
yes.
She was the only one not nominated of the 3 women who are the primary cast.
yeah, I mean, she was brilliant in that show. So I have her, she's in 3rd right now. But
She could win this. If she gets in, I might predict
She
it.
could. Yeah.
Saturday
She
Night
could.
Live is not as buzzed about as it was last year. And like you said, Amanda, I mean, it was mostly voting for Hillary Clinton. So I guess now it's voting for her as Jeff Sessions, I guess.
She's doing Giuliani now too. So
Yeah. Just playing all of history's greatest monsters.
Yeah.
You know what? She got to feel up Ryan Gosling. She's done, as far as I'm concerned. Like, you got your victory lap when you touched his tush. So I'm sorry, I'll stop.
So
Okay.
I'll say I think a lot of people are expecting Laurie Metcalf to get nominated for Roseanne, and I just don't think that's going to happen because I feel like you can make the comparison about when John Cryer won for 2.5 Men after Charlie Sheen had his meltdown, but that's a very typical kind of Hollywood meltdown that we see every single year from one person or another. What Roseanne did while tripping on Ambien was absolutely reprehensible, and I think that it's really hard to to separate the show that is named after her from the things that she said, whether it be about Valerie Jarrett or all this Donald Trump crap. So as much as we love Laurie Metcalf, I think she's going to sit this one out, and we're probably going to see some other people get in.
I'm having a hard time putting Rita Moreno into my predictions for one reason, and that's after she won that Lifetime Achievement Award at SAG. Why couldn't she get into the SAG Best Actress? Because remember when Betty White did it, won the Lifetime Achievement Award. The next year she won and was so popular enough that she was able to get TV Land's Hot in Cleveland nominated for Ensemble. I mean, we're talking about a Netflix show that couldn't get Rita Moreno after she won a Lifetime Achievement Award presenting to Morgan Freeman into the SAG actress lineup. So I just can't get past that. And
well, you make a good point. I mean, I think that because there are so many,
they love her that much. Why wasn't she nominated? Was my problem.
No, you're absolutely right, and I think that I mean, I have her in there, but only because of how many open slots there are, and because I mean, there's no guarantee that like Leslie Jones is going to come back.
Well, I think she had her best season personally.
Yeah. Well, I have her in my predictions, but like I think it's about a 70-30 she gets back in. But I mean, that's also assuming that are they going to nominate Zazie Beetz for Atlanta, who's very good in it, but not in a whole lot of it.
But you know what? She could be like the Adam Driver. Like, remember they with girls, going back to my point with Brian Tyree Henry, they didn't go with one of the other girls. They went with the guy.
The man in the show Girls.
So she might stand out more because she's not going to be directly in his kind of shadow.
Do you think that? Oh, go ahead.
And she got some notice in Deadpool 2, where she was very good. I just don't want to leave Megan Mullally just yet. I honestly don't know. I don't know whether she submitted Quinceañera as her episode. If she did, she's in.
Well, they don't really tell us what they submit till they.
Yeah. But I'm betting that she did. And that's why I have her so high. But I think Borstein is the real challenger here. Moreno, the series' best episode, she's in a coma for 3/4 of it. She has wonderful, wonderful scenes once she comes out of it, but it's not a great submission. She's been getting a lot of national treasure adjectives applied to her within the past year. So I'm not taking the SAG thing quite as seriously. And I think the openings are such that the number of openings that she could get in, maybe not easily, but I could see her getting in.
But couldn't Jessica Walters, maybe with all that goodwill, right as voting started, maybe bump her out? Maybe she wasn't as top as mine as like Jessica Walters.
Well, she could join her.
Who really deserves a hug. I mean, I am. Tony Hale is very lucky that the final season of Veep was not this year because he would be in jeopardy himself.
Yeah.
Just saying, we can move on.
My problem with Jessica Walter and Rita Moreno actually is I just don't think that they're really in the conversation, at least for Emmy voters. Like, I don't think that they're on the cusp of a nomination and that maybe they can take one of these open slots. I think that Rita Moreno had enough going for her that she should have gotten in last year when Netflix was doing a big push for the show. And, she's playing a very Emmy bait role. She's, the old grandma who says crazy things. They always love that for some reason. And then Jessica Walter has only been nominated once in 4 seasons. So, that's why I don't have her coming in. I think somebody who's being very underestimated by Gold Derby is Betty Gilpin for Glow. Because Glow was SAG nominated, and, she's the one in the supporting cast, arguably a co-lead, who really stands out because she has so much to do. And, Glow, it's got to get nominations somewhere, and this one has all these open slots, so I don't see why not her. Zazie Beetz, I don't think that she stands out. And you talk about how, Adam Driver, he wasn't overshadowed by Lena Dunham because he's not a girl. But the other girls weren't in Lena Dunham's category. I think Zazie Beetz is giving a very subdued performance. She's not in a lot of the episodes. I don't think Deadpool really helps her because that's, the Ryan Reynolds show. It's not like she's getting a lot of specific attention for it, the way that, you know, Melissa McCarthy was, as we always like to say, for Bridesmaids.
Well, the other problem is that, I mean, none of her episodes are necessarily comedic. They're very good, but, you know, it's not necessarily a, you know, laugh out loud in the same way that like Megan Mullally is, or Alex Borstein, or even like Betty Gilpin to an extent. I would say that, I mean, one person, if they do love Mrs. Maisel, then maybe Maren Hinkle could get one of those open slots.
Yeah, she's actually in my predictions.
Well, there you go. I mean, I don't know what
I might have to put her in mine. I thought I was.
Somebody else who I have a real soft spot for, and I hope it happens for her, is Darcy Carden for The Good Place. And I wonder if maybe the fact that she was in Barry as well could help, you know, remind people of what a wonderful actress she is.
Playing this like crazy robot. I love that. She's giving us something that we're not seeing from the other women. So
exactly. I mean, it's
That's
a
certainly
original
true, yeah.
performance. And I mean, if they do go for The Good Place in any kind of way, I really hope that she can find her way in there.
So what we've learned in the supporting race for supporting actresses, go ahead and make a crazy prediction, because this category is ripe for someone to sneak in.